Hey guys, Kpaceguy here, and welcome back to the long-awaited, highly anticipated episode 13 of 7 Reasons Why. This is 7 reasons why your speakers don't sound their best. So stay tuned. Jumping right into it, reason number 7 your speakers don't sound their best is going to be acoustic treatment. Now, we've been through this many times on my channel, but I can't stress enough how important it is to have some sort of a treatment in your listening room, whether it be acoustic panels, DIY panels, or even just a wall painting, a picture, a family photo, curtains instead of blinds, carpet on bare floors. It really plays a role in how your speakers are going to sound. Now, the point of having acoustic treatment in your room is you want to reduce the echo or reverberation that you get when sound bounces off of different reflection points and different surfaces. So if you have a bare floor or you have completely bare walls, you're going to have sound bouncing here, and then eventually they'll hit your ears. And so you want to minimize that as much as possible, but you don't want to reduce it completely. If you completely kill any echo that you have in your room, then it becomes unnatural and kind of unnerving. But you want to have some echo because that's more of a natural sound. Sound does bounce. You want sound to be able to reflect, but not as much as it does in a bare room. So if you have a curtain that you can put up, a rug on the floor, even a bookshelf, a bookcase, anything like that, that will really help your sound and help your speakers. So that's going to be reason number 7. Reason number 6 is going to be seating arrangement. Now, you have your room layout, you have really nice speakers, you have your TV there, but your seating arrangement doesn't quite make sense. So how is that going to help you out? Well, my seating arrangement back here, I'll show you guys. You guys are familiar with my home theater. So back here is my seat, and this is my sweet spot. And I'm centered directly in the middle of my room, meaning my TV is directly in front of me, so is my center channel, and then all my speakers are flanking my sides. And that's what you want to do with your system. You want to have your seating arrangement pretty much centered within the room. You want a symmetrical line. If you were to divide your home theater in half, you want the same stuff to be on one side as it is on the other. So for example, my front left speaker, my surround left speaker, and then my center channel, if I was to cut that in half, I should see a mirror image on the other end in my seating position. So half of my seat should be on one side of the room, half it should be on the other. Now, it doesn't always work. Some people's rooms are odd shaped, some people's rooms are longer than they are wide, or vice versa. Some people just don't have the means to have their seats right in the middle of the room, and that's okay. But you want to be as close as possible because you want to be able to have your system centered. Now, if you have to have your seating off to one side of the room, or maybe more to the front or more to the back, you want to adjust your speakers accordingly. So we'll talk about that in another reason, but that's going to be reason number 6. Reason number 5 is going to be speaker level. Now, speaker level is pretty important to get correct. And the reason being is because you don't want one speaker or multiple speakers playing louder than the other. Now, a lot of people say a good reference point for speakers is around 75 decibels or so, and maybe a little bit higher for the center channel, but you want your speakers to be playing all around the same level. So if your front left speaker is registering around 76, 77 decibels, you want the corresponding speaker, being the front right speaker, to play on the same. You also want the center channel to play on the same. The left back, the left right, your Atmos, all that. You want them all to be playing around or at the same decibel level so that nothing is louder than the other. You don't want one thing to catch your attention and something else not be able to capture your attention. You want everything to play on the same level. It's going to make a big difference in your explosions and your gunshots and your bullets and your overhead plane, anything like that. You want everything to play at the same level so that it's more believable. Your sound is more true to what the artist intended. So you're going to want to go into your settings and double check your level. Make sure your speakers are not playing higher than the other. Now, this does differ if your speakers are farther away than another speaker. Of course, you're going to have to change your distances and your speaker level to accommodate for the extra distance away your speaker is. But if everything's nice and symmetrical, you want everything to be playing pretty close to the same level. So that's going to be reason number 5. Reason number 4 as to why your speakers don't sound their best is going to be calibration. Now, calibration is important. I know it's at number 4, but it's still a really important point I want to bring up to you guys. Most modern receivers nowadays have some type of calibration, whether it's MC HTC from Pioneer, Odyssey from Denon and Marantz, YPow from Yamaha, and then Anthem from Anthem. There's a lot of different receivers that have different software nowadays that you can get at a pretty cheap price point that allows you to calibrate your system and tailor it to the speakers you have and the room that it's in. And now, it's not always going to be 100% correct, but it's a good grounding point, a good base to start with, and then you can go back in and critique it. So you may not have a receiver that has the means of calibration, and that's okay. There are ways to calibrate your system outside of the receiver itself. You can get your own SPL meter, you can use your phone, a tablet, or you can get a dedicated one, and you can measure speaker level that way. You can get a ruler and measure the distance from the tweeter to your seating position to get the distance between you and your speakers. And you want to try to get everything to be, kind of the same. Now, it's going to be a little bit harder for you to measure frequencies and nulls and peaks, but it is possible. So if you don't have a receiver that can do things on its own, there are ways outside of the receiver that can take care of it. But most people have receivers that can do it for them. So you're going to make sure to run that software. Every time you change your listening position, every time you change your speakers, every time you move your system around, you're going to want to run calibration again, especially when you add new components to your system. You're going to want to go back and run calibration and then go back and check what it did. It's not going to be 100% right, but it's going to be pretty close. It's going to help you out in the long run. That's reason number 4. Number 3 on this list is going to be source information. And what I mean by that is, what kind of files and what kind of movies are you playing on your system? So for example, let's say you have a 4K television, but all you watch is 720p DVDs and 1080p content. What was the point of getting a 4K TV if you're not going to use its true capabilities? Same thing is said with the receivers and amplifiers that you guys get. You have to make sure that you're getting the best quality videos and audio you can to utilize what it's meant to do. So for me, I have a Yamaha RX 3070, the Avantage line. It has 4K, Dolby Vision, all that good stuff in it. And I make sure that I at least buy Blu-rays. Maybe sometimes I get 4K Ultra HD, but I at least get Blu-rays to really utilize the sound decoding that my receiver is capable of and the video output processing that it's able to do as well. And of course for my television, I also feed it 4K content as much as possible to really utilize what it's doing. Now I know most 4K TVs upscale, but native 4K, you cannot beat it. Anything upscaled is going to get close, but it's going to be subpar. So when you're listening to music and you're watching movies, pay attention to what kind of decoding you're putting into your receiver. You may find that you're actually not feeding your information as clean and as clear as you possibly could get. You may think your speakers are terrible or you need a new receiver, but really it may be the source information that you're using. Maybe Spotify isn't a good enough sound for you, or maybe Bluetooth isn't the connection you should use when listening to music or audio. Source information could play a big part in why your speakers do or do not sound good. That's going to be reason number 3. Reason number 2 as to why your speakers don't sound their best is going to be receiver amplification. Now a lot of people have really nice receivers, but they're kind of fooled a little bit by the manufacturers, because if you look on your spec sheets, a lot of manufacturers rate their receivers way higher than what you're truly getting. I wouldn't call it a lie, but you're kind of hiding the truth at some point. And what I mean by that is, a lot of receivers boast 200 watts per channel or 180 or 240 watts per channel. And that's a lot of power, but that may not be true. When you start to use all 7 or 9 or 5 or 11 speakers or amplifiers, your wattage is going to disperse between those speakers. So that 240 watts might be times 2 at a certain frequency or a certain wattage or a certain volume. When you start to add different speakers, 2 speakers, 5 speakers, 7 speakers, that 240 becomes 180, 100, 90, 70, 60 watts. So you're actually getting a lot less power to your speakers than you think you are. And that also plays a difference in how your speakers sound. Now a lot of people think that watts equals volume, and sometimes that's the case, but a lot of times it's not. What we really want to get an external amplifier for is to add clarity, detail, stereo separation, nuance, flavor, even a little more spark in your system that a receiver typically cannot do. Now receivers do sound pretty good, I will say so, and a lot of speakers can get by with just receiver amplification. But if you really want to bring your speakers to life and dial it in, you may want to look into getting other amplification outside of your receiver. Not only do you get better sound quality from getting external amplification, you also add longevity to your speakers. It protects them better. You get consistent power, no power drop off. You get speakers power all the way to max rating, so if you have speakers that are rated to 200 watts, you meet that expectation by getting an external amplifier that is 200 watts. You just make it breathe and do its job a lot easier. Think about it like horsepower in a car, and you have a big hill. It's hard to get up a hill when you only have 90 horsepower, but you get a car that has 350 horsepower and you can zoom up that hill with no problem. Same thing with speakers. You want to give it all that it's asked for so that it has a lot to work with. You want to give more to the speaker than less, because it's okay to overpower your speakers because it's only going to use as much as it needs to. But it can't get 90 watts from a 50 watt amplifier when it needs it. So it's really important to get amplification from external sources other than your receiver. So that's going to have to be reason number 2. The number 1 reason on this list as to why your speakers don't sound the best is going to have to be speaker placement. And we talked about it in a few other points. It's not just getting your speakers symmetrical, meaning if your front left speaker is 6 feet away from your television, you want your front right speaker to be 6 feet away from your television. You want your center channel to be just below or above the screen there, whether it's your projector or it's the TV. And you want your surround backs to be equidistant as well. You also want them to be equidistant from you. So if your front left speaker is 15-20 feet away from you, you want your front right speaker to be the same. You want your center channel to be the same. And then if your surround left is about 19 to 20 feet away from you, you want your surround right to be around the same. So that's one way to get your speaker placement correctly. You want to be able to have it symmetrical so that if one side is this distance away, the other side of the room is roughly the same. Not only is that important, but you want to also pull your speakers off the wall. Now this is probably the hardest thing for people to do, and it's more for the music enthusiast than the movie enthusiast. You want to have your speakers pulled away from the wall, because the issue that you cause with having speakers pushed against the wall is what we call room gain compensation or boundary gain compensation. It adds a lot of boominess, muffledness, or inaccuracy in your bass. It really enhances the bass notes that you may or may not want. Now we all heard that we shouldn't put a subwoofer in a corner, and that can be true, but it also could benefit your subwoofer. If you have a small subwoofer that lacks like thunderous bass, like an 8-inch or maybe a small 10-inch subwoofer, you may find putting it in a corner actually helps reinforce the bass that it doesn't have. You can find it sounding just a little bit better. But if you have a bigger subwoofer, a good 10-inch, 12-inch or higher, you want to kind of kick that out of the corner there, because that corner is acting as a boundary gain, meaning you're adding extra dB, extra volume to your bass in a negative way. You may think, oh, extra bass, that means I don't have to turn my subwoofer as loud. I can crank it a little bit louder if I want to and get a lot more bass, whatever. But that's not necessarily the case. You're not necessarily doing your subwoofer a favor or your speakers a favor putting it against the wall. You're kind of adding nuances to your sound that you may not want. And the issue with that is that it becomes non-realistic. It's not what the artist intended anymore. It's a whole new sound. So if you can, pull your speakers up from the wall, kind of get them off the wall a few feet, give them room to breathe, especially if you have ports on the back of your speakers. If your subwoofer is ported on the back, you may want to pull it off the wall too, or maybe out of the corner. But if you can't, it's okay. There are things in your calibration that we talked about that can correct these issues. So if you have to put your subwoofer in the corner, or you have to keep your speakers against the wall, there are ways to compensate for that so that you're not having any issues in the future with movies and music. So speaker placement can get tricky, but I think it's super important, so I had to put that at number 1. Alright guys, so that's going to do it for 7 reasons why your speakers don't sound their best. And I hope you found some value in this. This may not pertain to you. You may have all these checked off your list, but some people aren't aware of some of the rules, the complicated rules, unfortunately, in home theater. And so I try to make that apparent to you guys who may have never heard about this kind of stuff. But if it doesn't pertain to you, make sure you leave a comment down below anyway, and let other people know what they need to do to fix their system. It's a fun hobby, but it's a tricky one, so a lot of people need this extra advice. So guys, if I helped you out at all, even in the slightest, leave me a comment down below and let me know what reason that you didn't get correct. Which one of those reasons out of the 7 did you find yourself not doing correctly? Was it speaker placement? Was it speaker level? Have you forgotten to go back and fix calibration? Let me know, guys. Also, hit that like button if you found this video informative, and also hit that subscribe button while you're there, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Kpaceguy out.